Little bit, okay.
Only little bit.
Little bit. So what I'm going to do then, I will basically explain a little bit about how the instrument works and how to make it sound good, because the most difficult thing for many beginning players on the harmonica, and also for many people who've been playing for years, is to get a good sound. You would think that it would be simple because it looks simple, you know, just 10 holes, 20 notes, but it's actually quite a complex instrument. And I've had the good fortune to make my living from playing it for over 35 years, which is actually quite amazing really, if I think about it. It's certainly better than working. So what I'd like to do, like I say, is explain some basic stuff, introduce a few of the models which are suitable for the style of playing which I do, and also of course to answer any questions that you may have. This is an information presentation rather than a sales show, so as far as I'm concerned, your interests are paramount, yeah? So if anyone has any questions, then just ask at any time, yeah? What I'd like to do first of all is just play you a tune so that you can get some kind of idea of what I do with these harmonicas, and then we'll take it from there. And this is a swing blues, but not too typical for the genre. We'll see if it works. So, when you think about it, the fact that you can play like that on this instrument is a complete coincidence. It was never intended to be used like that. It was meant to be played like this.
That's unlikely.
Me too. So there's kind of worlds in between, yeah? And it's really a coincidence that musicians discovered that you can play in the style that I was playing before when the instrument was really not made for it. This has happened with quite a lot of musical instruments. It happened with the guitar, it happened with the saxophone. And generally speaking, the way that that took place was that the instruments were exported to the United States and black people started playing them. And they discovered stuff about them due to the sort of mix of musical influences in the United States. They discovered things about these instruments that their makers had never intended. And this was the case with the harmonica, because it was, in simple terms, it's made to play folk tunes, because when you blow in one of these 10-hole harmonicas, you get the tonic chord, the root chord of the key to which it's tuned. This has C on the side, so that's C major, yeah? And when you breathe, that's when you breathe out. When you breathe in, you get the dominant seventh chord, yeah? So just by breathing...
Now you blow 3 holes?
I was playing chords, 3 to 4 holes, because it's a pleasant sound, because it's tuned, generally speaking, so that it sounds nice when you play chords, you know. And the chords are the basis, the musical basis of the instrument. So folk music on the harmonica, the folk music it was designed to play, would be in the major key that is stamped on the instrument, so in A, on the harmonica in A, or in this case C, or whatever. And the musicians in the United States discovered that you didn't have to play it like that. You could play it like that, and you could play great music like that, but you can also play it in a very different way by moving the tonal center, the key that you're playing in on the instrument, from the blow chord to the draw chord. If you play in the blow key, then it's very major and folky, yeah, suitable for folk music, so you have, you know, major key folk melodies. If you play in the key of the draw chord, then you have a completely different sound, because the notes are the same, but the point at which you're starting is different. You're starting on the dominant chord, basically, so it sounds completely different. We've gone from, so to speak, Old MacDonald had a farm, to Can I Get a Witness in, you know, one step. And that's just because of the key in which the instrument is being played. So that's the first thing. Most kind of blues style harmonica is played, most of it, by no means all of it, but most of it is played in the key of the draw chord on the instrument, and not in the key that's stamped on the harmonica. This gives rise to a lot of confusion. One of the most popular harmonica keys in terms of sales worldwide is E. I don't even own a harmonica in E, because I play in the draw chord key would be B major. I play very rarely in B major. But I play a great deal in E, so I would then take an A harmonica where the draw chord is E. That's A. That's B. Yeah, it's a very common error that people go into a music shop and say, I want a harmonica to play Blues Harp and I want to play in E, and so they get sold a harmonica in E.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunately not
But
suitable
it's
for
never
playing blues in E, it's made to play blues in B. So this is a kind of central point, it's really, really important to realise that. That you don't play in the key that's stamped on the instrument, you play in the dominant key. Now, the other thing that makes these instruments different from all other kinds of harmonica instrument is that they have 20 notes, one blow note and one draw note in each hole, and these notes are always of different pitch, so you never get the same note in one hole when you blow as when you draw. And these two reeds that make the sound, they are not separated from one another, they're in the same airstream. So when I blow then into one hole, then some air will escape past the draw reed because it doesn't seal completely. There are no vowels. Like on the chromatic harmonica, for example, like this, there are little windsaver valves which close over the opposing reed. So if I blow, then no air is passing over the draw reed because a flap has covered it up. And so it can't start vibrating in sympathy. With these harmonicas, if I blow, then a whole load of air is running over the draw reed. And when I draw, a whole load of air is escaping past the blow reed. And what this means is that they're in the same airstream. So if you learn how to do it, you can manipulate the pitch of the higher of these two notes. You can bend the higher note in any hole. One note is always higher than the other, whether it's the blow or the draw note. Yeah? You can bend that higher note downwards towards the lower note. So that's draw, blow in hole 4 here, right? And that is what makes the typical sound, basically.
That's the difficulty.
That's difficult if you approach it the wrong way. I can explain to you how to do it. But that's part of a process because, first of all, you have to learn how to play the notes so that they sound good, and that's why I said at the beginning, what I'd like to concentrate on showing you how to do is how to sound good on the harmonica, because it's very common to hear a lot of really unpleasant sounding harmonica playing. We hear, yeah, you know, like, which is really not pleasant for anybody around you. So it's a good idea to learn how to make it sound nice. And there are some very simple tips which I can tell you, which will make it much easier for you to do this. The first thing that you have to realize with the harmonica is that the sound is not entirely produced here by the instrument. A large part of the sound comes from the column of air inside the vocal tract of the player. So your body is part of the instrument. It's actually a vital part of the instrument. And when you play the harmonica, you therefore have to learn to, first of all, breathe right. Breathing is the basis of it. The harmonica is not played by blowing and sucking. That's because that would mean like that, yeah? Blow suck is deadly. You should forget it, you know. The harmonica is played by breathing through the instrument. And you have to breathe the same as if you're singing with the entire capacity of the lungs. This doesn't mean exerting a lot of pressure, it means using the whole volume. So you have to breathe from the diaphragm. You can see my hand moving, yeah? That's because I'm moving the air from the diaphragm, the big muscle in between the abdominal cavity and the lungs. Yeah?
It's volume, not pressure.
It's
Volume
helps because the thing is that if you have a large volume, you can accommodate the longer wavelengths of lower notes more easily. And that's exactly right, it's volume. But you have to learn how to control the volume, because it's not simply a matter of where you're moving the air from, it's a matter of what shape in your throat you're creating. So, the first thing is breathe from the diaphragm. This means from here. Yeah, you really move the air from down here, and not how we mostly breathe when we're speaking or doing, most normal physical activity. If you do sport, you'll find that you will tend automatically to breathe more from the diaphragm because you need the oxygen, so you'll just move more air. And it's similar with the harmonica. It's exactly the same if you sing. I don't know if any of you have ever had singing lessons, but if you go to a singing instructor, one of the first things that they tell you is learn to breathe from the diaphragm and use the entire lung capacity. The harmonica is very similar to singing in many respects. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to be able to move this quite large volume of air with as low pressure as possible. So you need to have your throat open. The throat has to be really open. Not yeah, I've really got my throat as wide open as I can so that the resistance to the air is as low as possible. And that's essential because that's creating a space here where the physical wavelengths of the notes that you're trying to play, they can resonate in there. And this is something, therefore, which is, essential to learn to do. The next thing, moving slowly up from here to here, so to speak, yeah? The next thing, your jaw position needs to be open. It is impossible to play the harmonica with your jaws closed. You need to open your mouth. You have to really, and what I do, I move my lower jaw for my teeth, the rows of teeth, the upper and the lower teeth, I can get my finger in between them. Like that when I'm playing. I really have a finger's breadth between upper and lower rows of teeth. And I extend my lower jaw forward. Like that. And what this means is I can now put the harmonica really far inside my mouth. If you look from the side, you'll see. Yeah, it's right inside my mouth, even though I'm playing single notes. And the reason why this works is because of extending the lower jaw forward. Because what this means is I have to tilt the harmonica upwards. And watch this. If I don't tilt it upwards, then this happens. If I do that, I get a chord. I can't isolate the channel to play a single note. If I, with exactly the same lip position, I'm not changing anything on my mouth. So that's essential. You want to play single, because people come and say, I can't get a single note. No, but that's because you're possibly tilting the harmonica down or holding it straight, and you're not extending your lower jaw. You have to. Yeah, I kind of, generally speaking, I'd like to think of a gorilla with a banana. Yeah? Or maybe there's some kinds of fish that eat from the water's surface. And they all have extended lower jaws so they can suck flies down from the surface of the water. And that's kind of what you do when you want to play single notes on the harmonica. It's very important, if you are playing with a whistle, with a pucker, embouchure, yeah, to extend the lower jaw and tilt the back of the harp slightly upwards like this. Because just if you don't do that, if you simply put it in your mouth, then you're getting a chord. Your air is passing through more than one channel. And simply by tilting it up like that, physically, it's much easier to get the shape of your lips so that the air only passes through one channel only. Because all I'm doing is just changing the angle of the harmonica. I'm not changing anything in my mouth position at all. So that's really vital. And if you watch people who can play the harmonica and have a decent sound, this is one of the things that most of them will do. There are anatomical differences between individual people. So some people will maybe do this slightly differently, but the majority of players that I've observed, and I've seen a great many harmonica players, they tilt the harp. If they play with a pucker embouchure, they tilt the back of the harp up. The only time I don't do this is if I play using my tongue to isolate the single note. And there I will actually tilt it sometimes down, because then I'm putting my tongue here in the left-hand side of the mouth against the channel openings, and I'm playing through this single note through here. You get a raspier and tougher tone by tilting it down, but that is a real exception to the rule, and generally speaking I always tilt the back of the harp up. So if you follow these simple rules, which is breathe from the diaphragm, have your throat really open, and that means you pull the soft palate, the soft bit at the back of the mouth, you pull it right back, yeah? Then you can let a lot of air through at low pressure. You open your jaw and you extend the lower jaw forwards. Then you can get a loud, resonant, powerful sound. Now, there's one other thing, and that is that actually when you do this, you're really kind of whistling a note. And what that means, what whistling is, yeah, you are adapting the length of the air column in your vocal tract to correspond to the wavelength of the note that you're playing, right? Because all of these waves, a sound wave is a sinus wave, yeah, it's like this, you know, and it has a concrete wavelength and a resonant frequency. And you've got to accommodate that wavelength, that waveform here in your vocal tract. And if you don't, that's the main reason why you hear out of tune sounding harmonicas or thin, weak sounding harmonicas, is because people are not doing this. And I'd like to just show you one thing that makes that really clear. If I'm playing this C harp, playing the second draw note, I'm basically kind of whistling it, yeah? Like I'm making a shape that would allow me to whistle it, yeah? And I could take related notes. I could take the octave. Then, of course, the lip opening is smaller, so I can't take the harmonica so far inside my mouth, so the note is quieter, but at least it's on pitch. Or maybe the fifth, yeah? It sounds all right still. It's not as loud because I can't take the instrument as far inside my mouth, but it's sounding at the right pitch. But if I form a note in my throat that does not correspond to this note here that I'm trying to play at all, then I will either make it sound really flat, yeah, or I can actually kill it completely. If I take, for example, the tritone, yeah, it's dead. And I've had this happen very frequently, that people buy a perfectly good instrument, come back to the music shop and say the second draw note doesn't work. Look, yeah, it's broken. It's not broken. You just can't play it. You've got to learn how to do that. It's the same as if people would buy a trumpet and then would come back and say, look, it doesn't work. Sure, it doesn't work. You've got to learn how to play. You know, you've got to learn the lip to be able to play a trumpet. And the harmonica is the same. You have to learn to create the appropriate shape. And that's something where when you've practiced a bit, then the muscles remember it. They do it automatically. It becomes completely something you don't think about it. But if you're wondering why, when you play the harmonica, the sound is not pleasant and it's also maybe not right in tune or something like that, this is probably the reason. This is one of the the real common reasons why you'll hear out of tune sounding harmonicas, and it is the most common reason why instruments are taken back to music retailers as defective when they're not. It happens all the time. And that is really something where it's important to realize that the player has to treat the instrument in a way which will enable the notes to sound, otherwise they can't. That's like not an opinion, it's a fact of physics, it's like gravity, it's there. So do bear that in mind when you're practicing. I'd like to show you a simple exercise which is a great way of practicing all of the stuff that I've tried to cover up till now. And it's also a great way as an introduction to playing in the second position, as we call it, playing the draw chord key. And it's also fantastic training for the muscles that control your breathing, because the lungs have no muscles, the lungs like a sponge, and it's controlled by mainly the diaphragm, but also these muscles and the back muscles, they all play a role in moving your lungs to make them operate. And most of us, unless we happen to be like sort of rappers or something like that, have not learned to breathe rhythmically. It's not very common in speech, you don't usually do it. So, but when you play the harmonica, you have to learn to breathe rhythmically. Do you all have an instrument? Has everyone got a harp? I have a C here, but I have loads of other keys, so we can try in all of them. Just take a harmonica, and I'll just show you a real simple rhythmic exercise, which will perhaps be a good introduction to playing like this. Before we start, one thing really, really important, and that is, how do you best hold the harp? There is a lot of misleading information in instructional material. You'll see people doing this, or you'll see people doing this, and I consider that to be a fairly serious mistake, because you can't get your lips around the instrument because your fingers are in the way. So I hold the harp either like this, and this is the most simple way to hold, is you really make a kind of like a claw with your hand, with all four fingers together, yeah? Not like this, but like this, so that the four fingers are all together, and you just place the harmonica in there, and I hold it at the back. I don't hold it here, yeah? I'm holding it as close to the back as I possibly can, and I'm resting these three fingers, I'm holding it with the thumb and the index finger, and I'm resting these three fingers behind it, very relaxed, it's not like gripped tightly. But this is quite a good starting position. It's not the only way to hold it. I use different ways of holding the harmonica. But what I want to try to get you to avoid doing is that. Because that means you won't be able to get your lips around it. So, what we're going to do is, first of all, just breathe in on the bottom 2 or 3 holes. And it should sound like this. Remember what I said about breathing from the diaphragm, throat open, you can tilt the harp. And just breathe in and play that chord. I'll give you a beat. We'll do it in 4/4 time. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me hear. 1, 2, 3, 4. want to be hearing here is not so much of the third hole. You're playing, for example, very strongly the third hole. The main note we want to be hearing here is 2-draw, because that's the root note of that chord. Yeah, it's a kind of a very, it's a really, you can almost leave out 3. It's like you have a little bit of air passing over that, but the sound really is, you hear that, you're hearing from me there, you're hearing really, yeah, in that sort of volume relationship, yeah, and the loudest one should be the 2, so that when you hear it, that's really the main note that you hear, so it's very clear that that is the center point, yeah. And then what I want you to do is to play that chord for like, if you imagine we're counting in quarter beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you hold the chord for 1 quarter beat and then you breathe out twice, but twice as fast. And this rhythm is the basis for all the harmonica train imitations and everything like that. So if you learn to do it fast, then it sounds like this. So. Yeah, you can make so you can vary the sound with your hands and all this kind of stuff. But what it does, yeah, it teaches the muscles to breathe rhythmically. And these out breaths, they come from here. You can see my hand move, yeah? Because I'm moving the air from the diaphragm. So it's a bit like a cough. Like that, yeah? And that gives it a rhythmic punch, which makes the whole thing sound. If you don't do that, then it sounds like... See the variation you can, just with that one pattern. So let's just try that together, and remember when you breathe out, it's like the first cough is a little bit shorter. It's ba-ba. Let's try that. Start on the draw chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just the first 2 holes. Just the first 2 holes. 1 and 2. The idea, yeah, is simply to get accustomed to the chord sounding flat. You don't want it to come, that's a no-no. It should come real flat so that it comes in at pitch and stays there, yeah? And you need to have the 2-draw sounding. Not because that's the most difficult note is the 2-draw. And if you don't have a suitable throat shape, then it may not sound. So you may find that you're getting that, where only the 1 and the 3, for example, sound, or only the 1 sounds. It really has to sound like that, with both of those notes sounding equal. So this exercise, yeah, if you practice this. I would really recommend using that as, if you practice with any degree of regularity, just use that to warm up before you try to play any tunes or anything like that. Just try this simple rhythmic exercise because it's very effective, and if you do it for 5 minutes a day, yeah, then you will find that after a couple of weeks you can really hold the tempo, it will be solid, the tempo will be solid, and then you can start trying to speed it up. And once you've got the feel for the breathing, you can get a fast tempo. No, really. This is exactly the same, but just a lot faster. You know, you can get some tempo up and hold that tempo. And the trick is to never try to go too fast. It's the same with any kind of playing tunes. It's exactly the same. Don't try and get faster simply because you think it ought to be faster. Play it slowly until it's right, and then speed it up. Yeah, this is a standard with any musical instrument, but it's very relevant with this. So that's an exercise. I used it a lot. I still use this as a warm-up, you know, because it's just a great way to get some air through your lungs and sort of. It's brilliant if you're a smoker, by the way. It's a very good idea for anyone who smokes because it's.
I do hear a sound like this. How do you do that?
Well, what you're hearing, what you're hearing is this, and that is actually the larynx that's making that noise. And it's not something that it's easy to control. If you, it's actually, like I say, it's a slight cough, and some of that comes from here, and some of it comes from here. You may be able to do it without. That may be a question of the individual anatomy. I don't know. I just, you know, I find that happens. Yes, and you get quite a lot of breathing noise or mouth noise, throat noise when you play the harmonica. It's difficult to eliminate it, but it's part of the sound of the instrument. So it's a bit like you get fret noise when you play guitar, or if you slide up and down the string, you'll get the string squeaking. It's part of the playing the instrument. It's just how it is. So I wouldn't worry about that. It's not something that's intentional. It's simply something that I don't know how to avoid. At least I haven't figured it out yet. This is the first harmonica rack commercially made in large quantities. Harmonica rack which is actually comfortable to play. It's a tiny bit tighter. This is infinitely adjustable, basically. And you can, the special thing about this flex rack is that you can adjust it here, and you can adjust the height here and the angle. So and that means it's actually quite easy to use when playing the guitar, because of the piano or whatever, because it's basically in the right position, because it doesn't run away from you. Quite an amazing improvement on any other harmonica rack that I've ever played. I never tried playing the harp in the rack because I found it so frustrating. And this is actually something which for the first time makes it possible. It's quickly and easily adjustable, and you can change the harmonica just by pulling that down, slip the harp out, put a new one in. So it's a really practical solution. The only comparable racks to this which have existed in the past cost 3 or 4 times as much. This is, you know, very robust, really well made, and adjustable to the needs of the player. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then I would say that's a very good choice. Anyone want to ask anything? Is there any stuff, anything, you know, anything anyone got on their mind? Otherwise,
Can you clarify what you mean by airtight? Is that the reed in the reed plate?
that's part of it. There are a number of different factors about which define how airtight a harmonica is. The first one is the tolerances of the reed in the slot, the air gap. Yeah, and that is one of the factors. Yeah. However, the other factors are how well the reed plates sit on the body, because they have to be absolutely flat on the collar. Otherwise, you will lose air in between the reed plate and the collar. And the other thing is that the covers need to be completely down onto the front of the reed plate, or in this case, tucked in behind the mouthpiece. And you sometimes see if the the harmonica's been squashed or something, if there's a gap at the front, stuff like this, then it's unplayable. But the major factors are the tightness of the air gap and whether the reed plate is absolutely flat on the cone or not. Those are the major points. Anything else? Anyone wants to ask anything else? Should I play you another song?
Can you tell something about bending?
Yes, I can willingly do that. Bending, the simplest way to look at bending on the diatonic harp. Well, the first thing you need to know, you can bend the higher of the two notes in any hole. You cannot bend the lower of the two, right? They're always a different pitch, and like here, the lower one won't bend. No. The higher one will always bend, the lower one won't. The second thing is that how far you can bend the note depends on how far apart these two notes are, the interval between the two. This is pretty loud. Is Johan going to ask him to turn it down? Because this is pretty disturbing, I must say.
I agree.
We all, I can't think straight if there's loud stuff going on in the background. So, higher note in any hole can be bent. That means the first 6 draw notes, which are all higher than the corresponding blow notes, and the top 4 blow notes. The bottom 6 draw notes they're all higher than the blow notes in the same hole, so they can all be bent. And the top 4 blow notes they're all higher than the draw notes, so they can be bent. Yeah?
Bending or
That is bending.
overdraw?
Overbends are something completely different. Overblow is a term which is often confused with blow note bending. But blow note bending is bending. And overbends are a different subject, which I'm not likely to go into here unless somebody really wants to know about it. Bending is the thing you need to learn first. You can bend the higher note in any hole, that is 1 to 6 draw and 7 to 10 blow. Now the other thing is how far can you bend the note? Because the interval between the lower and higher note in each hole varies. You have different intervals. Here you have a whole tone, but here you have 3 half steps, 3 semitones, 1 half whole tones. Here you have 2 whole tones in 3. And then in 4 you have 1 whole tone again. In 5 you have a half tone. In 6 you have a whole tone. In 7 you have a half tone. 8 you have a whole tone. 9 you have a whole tone. And 10 you have 3 semitones. So what that means is that each of these bendable notes behaves in a slightly different way depending on how much higher than the other note in the same hole it is. and the difference is from 1 semitone to 4 semitones. So some notes can be bent more than others.
Yeah.
Some bendable notes can be bent more than others. That is why. It's because of how far apart they are. And it's very important, therefore, to not attempt to overstrain bent notes. If you've discovered how to play a bend in 4, and you try and bend 5 the same amount, you'll probably break it because it won't go that far. That's as far as it will go, because it's only a semitone apart. Yeah? Because the bent note is created by the interaction of the 2 reeds. They're sounding together, and they're actually creating the bent note together. So it's quite a good idea to actually, the information is readily available in the internet, and there's lots of publications which list it. You know, how far can you bend individual notes? It's good to pay attention to that and not simply try to do it randomly. Now, the starting point to bending a note is to get a clear single note. You really have to be, a bendable note, you can view it as a continuum with a highest point, like the ceiling, yeah, and a lowest point, like the floor. And you cannot go past the ceiling. It will not sound at a higher pitch than its like fastest possible frequency that it can vibrate with, and it cannot go below the floor of the bend. It won't do it. So you can't force it, and it's wise not to try. The floor of the bend is about a quarter tone above the other note in the same hole. Yeah, if you hear it, it's like. That's not a semitone, it's less than a semitone. A semitone will be. Yeah, here there's a lot more space underneath that. So you have this ceiling. And that is a fixed point. These are both fixed points. It won't go higher than the ceiling, it won't go lower than the floor. So what you want to learn how to do is to have a command over the whole continuum, so that you can go anywhere in it, you can move around freely in it. And this will enable you to play all the true notes lying in between the higher and the lower note. So if, like in hole 3, B, draw, and G, blow, you've got an A, for example, or a B flat, or an A flat, yeah? And you can play slides. Downwards and upwards. So the idea when you're learning to do this is that you want to, first of all, get the note to move. So you start at the ceiling, very important, start at the ceiling. Many people will find that they are unintentionally bending the note. If you listen closely, you'll find if you try and play, you might not be getting that note. You might very well be getting somewhere quite considerably lower. Yeah? So you need to pay attention to that. Am I playing in tune? Am I playing the note at the ceiling? Yeah? And that's your starting point, is the ceiling. Yeah? To move downwards, what you do is you change the shape of your throat. Is what it would sound, something like that, if I were to take the harmonica out of my mouth. Unfortunately, you can't get the same pressure relationships if you remove the instrument. It only really works with the harp in your mouth. But what I'm doing there is I'm moving my soft palate further back and bringing up the middle of the tongue and the middle of the mouth, so that I'm enlarging the space here and narrowing it down here. Yeah? And that will be the normal note. And you can hear that I've narrowed this down. You can hear the soft palate is making that sound. Because that's how I'm making exactly the right throat shape to play that pitch.
You're not changing the position of the harmonica.
No, don't do that.
No, no, no.
Don't do that. There are books that suggest this, they're bullshit. Don't do it. It's just, there's no way to do that. There's no need. It's also, I've also seen in the literature people who really ought to know better saying all you need to do is draw harder. It's rubbish. It's completely untrue. You can bend notes very quietly and very loudly. It doesn't make any difference. The technique is the same. The technique is completely independent of volume, independent also of the angle. I don't change the position of the harmonica in my mouth at all when I bend notes. I do use my jaw sometimes. Because if I want to narrow down the space in the middle of the mouth, then I might raise the jaw, yeah? But I can also do it just from the throat. And if you look, you'll see the changes happening here. It's right here, above the larynx. There's where your tonsils are, if you still have them, basically. It's just here, yeah? And if I do it with a lower note, then there's quite a visible movement here, yeah? And that is where the modification is coming from. It's not due to tilting the harmonic, anything like that, don't even bother. It's, you have to learn to change the length of the column of air in your throat. And a friend of mine in Australia many years ago did an experiment. He's a physicist at Monash University in Melbourne. And he constructed a machine where he got a vacuum cleaner where it would blow and then blow in the other direction. He could change the air direction from blow to draw, basically. And he connected up a pipe to something that he could fit over the individual channels of the harmonica. He used a special 20, in fact, I think. And in between, he put a bicycle pump as the column of air, you know, a regular bicycle pump with a piston, right? And that is a variable column of air. And he found that just by adjusting the length of the column of air, he could bend every note and overblow or overdraw every note on the harmonica mechanically. Because it is only a question of the length of the column of air. And everything else, it's just how you do it. And if I'm bending that note, then I'm really like, I'm changing the length of the air column so that it corresponds not to that D, which is maybe a wavelength like that, but to the D flat, which is a wavelength like that. It's a small alteration in the shape of your throat. And the thing you need to do is to get familiar with doing these throat positions. It's a bit like riding a bike. Once you've learned to do it and realized, no, I won't fall over, you know, it's going to keep on rolling, then you can come back to it. You can come back to it years later and still do it. Because the muscles have learned the positions that they need to adopt in order to actually create bent notes. The easiest notes to bend are the ones where there is a whole tone interval, a two semitone interval between upper and lower note, higher and lower note. Those are the simplest because they bend a whole semitone plus quite a bit more, actually almost 1.5 semitones. That means they're easier to control than bends which will go much further, like in hole 3, where you've got a big interval between higher and lower note. And also much easier than hole 5 or 7, for example, where the interval is much smaller. They bend, but they won't bend very far, and I would approach those notes last. The ones you want to learn, first of all, is 1, 4, and 6 draw, because they're the easiest. Then move on to 2 and 3, because 2 and 3 are they're probably the most difficult ones. Don't bother really about trying to learn to bend the top blow notes until you can bend, I mean you can try, you know, But if you can't bend the lower draw notes, then you may find that they're simply too stiff to be able to move them. So learn the lower draw notes first would be my advice. And it's really like, that is basically what's going on in the throat. And it is, you can hear quite clearly from how I'm breathing there that I'm not going, it's, the soft palate is in quite an unusual position. It's not where you put it when you speak. It's really very specific to playing the harmonica. Because that's what creates the pitch. That is really the form that corresponds to the wavelength of the note that I'm playing. So the starting point is the unbent note, the ceiling. Yeah, and it's all controlled from the throat.
But you must, the length of the air column must be greater. Is
No.
that what?
It has to be less. You decrease the length of the air column because, oh, excuse me, no, you're quite right. The air column, the length has to, you're right, the length has to be greater because the pitch is lower, so the wavelength is longer. Yeah, that's it. Right. So you're making a larger throat shape, basically, but within fairly narrow parameters. And the mistake that people usually make is to try to suck the bends out. That's never going to work. They just want to do it. You don't need to exert any force. It's really just. And you can hear. You know, I'm lowering the pitch of the note. If it were a whistle, then it would go. So it might be worthwhile, you know, experimenting with whistling there. But that is basically how it works. And as soon as you can bend one note, then it's worth moving on to others and trying to figure them out as well, because they're all slightly different to execute. But it's very important to try to get the whole spectrum from the ceiling to the floor of the bend, that you really reach the bottom. And that is something which takes practice, because you just have to get the right throat shape to be able to do it. It is easier to learn to bend with a pucker embouchure. It's much easier than with a tongue block, because the tongue block means that you really have to do it all right back in the throat, and that is easier on some notes than on others, for me, definitely. I find it considerably more difficult to do with a tongue block, so I will, you know, it's more easy to control the bent notes if you play them with a pucker embouchure. Anything else anyone would like to ask about that? I mean, we can try it if you like. I mean, you know, I mean, who knows how to bend notes? How many of you can do it? Excellent. That's very good, because that's a full tone bend in two. So that is the complete bend. Can you get right down to the bottom of that? Would you be able to play there?
1, 2,
2.
2.
It goes lower.
That's one practice.
Yeah. But you got lower the first time.
Yeah, but a little bit position a bit, so try to do it like
Right, let me see how you're holding it.
Yeah, I'm usually holding a microphone, so
Yeah, right, sure. The problem here, that what you're hearing, is there's an awful lot of air loss. There's a load of air being wasted there, yeah? And this is one reason to tilt the harp.
yeah.
I don't lose any air there.
Don't practice that much as you.
Pardon?
I don't practice that much as you would. It's
I don't
long time
practice
ago.
at all.
Play all day. That's
Well, sometimes, yeah, some days.
Are you resting?
Yeah.
Deze toch ook, hè?
And that's try it on 4. Let's hear it on 4, because that's what you were doing, and that was a full bend. That was the. That's 3, and you're also getting part of the way. Try 4. The main problem is the air loss.
Yeah.
Main problem is the air loss, and as I say, if you tilt the harp up, it won't happen.
I'm trying to tilt it up, just like you do.
There you go. Yeah. There you're getting down to the bottom of the bend. Yeah? You don't need to tilt it much. It's really only a slight angle, but it makes it even less than that. Now there, that's the floor of the bend. Yeah. And that is a point to try to go for with any bent note. You want to reach the floor because it feels different. When it gets there, you can feel it in your throat. But the actual physical feeling, because both reeds are vibrating together, and that feels different. One can actually hear it because the vibrations are transmitted by the air, so that your throat muscles can feel them. And that is very important to try to do that, to get to the floor of the bend. No? That's with the rest of you. Let's just hear someone else. Can you do that? You want to try? The 4th hole. Just bend it as far as you can. The draw note. So this is, you're going like from the ceiling down to about here, and it's not going any further. You're getting a semitone, so you have a usable semitone.
So can further go.
It goes much further. So that's what I would suggest that you practice with it, yeah. Because the Lee Oscars, they bend quite easily. They're fairly good beginners harmonicas because they are like easy to bend.
Yeah.
But it's important to concentrate not just on getting the pitch alteration. When you've got it to change, you want to make sure you're getting to the bottom. That's very important. Can you see how you do with that? So it wanted to go down to the floor, but you're not. You're tilting down though. If you tilt up, it'll be much easier. There you go. You hear the difference?
Yeah.
It's the tilting. That's more like it. No, you got to skip there. The problem with the Lee Oscars is that they make those squeaking noises. That's part of the harp. It's got a shorter reed. It makes it easier to bend because it's a shorter, more flexible reed, but they make a whole load of noise, which I personally wouldn't want to hear. But it's a good instrument to learn it on. That's definitely. Can you do that?
No.
No? Try. Let's just hear how you do. So it ain't happening, but what is the instrument that he's playing? It is
Regular harp.
a GLH. Get a special 20, it's much easier. They do it, and you have to take it further into your mouth. You have to remember the stuff that I was saying about the jaw, the lower jaw. So it's coming down, it's moving. Yeah, a little bit. But you want to be really concentrated on, first of all...
I'm sweating already.
Yeah, I know, it's strenuous, I'm familiar with this. But it's a lot easier if you get a better instrument, because these are just not very airtight, so that you're wasting breath, you know, it's a lot better to do it on a special drum.
Yeah, this is one of the cheaper ones.
Yeah, it is, it's a budget instrument. Let's see, can you do that? There you have the floor of the band, yeah? Yeah? But the thing to try to practice, yeah, is to do a steady, gradual slide, and when you get to the bottom, hold it there. there's a lot of... And it's very good, but you may find it will work better if you tilt a little bit. I'm really serious with this inclining the harmonica, it works, yeah? If you tilt a little bit up, there, now you can hold the bottom of the bend, yeah? Then you were maintaining it. You got right down to the floor and were maintaining it, so there you go. Would you like to try, sir? 4 draw. There, you got the start. That's the first. But don't move it while you're doing it. Just have a comfortable position, a comfortable angle, and because you can't suck the bend out. It's not. I'm not doing that. I'm going. It's very gentle. But if you hold it like that, it won't work. Because you are now holding it pointing level or slightly down. It makes it more
Een biertje
difficult.
van een borrel denken, dan lukt het wel. Gewoon kantelen! Nee, andersom. Ja.
You see there, then you can get the first step. That's the first stage of the bend.
Borreltje, achterover kantelen, achterover.
Nou, een ander moet doen, weet je wel.
Ja, anders kan ik het ook niet onthouden.